Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to give people a couple more minutes. We're expecting over 300 and we're about 175 right now. Good afternoon, everybody. We are at about 200 people right now, and welcome. My name is Frank Hackett. I'm the superintendent of schools. On the line with us is Assistant Superintendent Jim Lee, who will be stepping in to answer some questions as well. I just wanted to say a couple things about the session today. This won't be your only opportunity to ask questions. We will be doing some more Zoom remote meetings. We likely will start doing them based on topics as well. So I would just say from the start, if you have special education questions specifically, we will be doing a special education Zoom meeting like these sessions as well sometime next week, with more information on that to be coming available. So we have a hard stop at 5:55. I would ask that you please ask only one question so that we can get to as many people as possible. We're going to start with a little bit of just a summary again, just for those of you who haven't had a chance to see it. I'm sure hopefully you've all seen the opening plan that was approved by the school committee on Monday night. So I will just spend a couple minutes on a couple of slides just to orient everybody. So the plan for reopening this fall, the first day of school for all students will be Wednesday, September 16th. The plan is that all students will be attending their home schools. So it is like we are opening in a regular way. Manatic will be half-day kindergarten sessions, elementary schools, Liberty Highlands, grades 1 to 5, Flaherty, Hollis, Morrison, Ross, grades 1 through 4. And then the middle schools will be, as they were scheduled to be, East will be grades 5 through 8 with 5th graders from Flaherty, Hollis, Morrison, and Ross, as well as 6-8. And South will be grades 6 through 8 from Liberty and Highlands. And of course, Braintree High School will be grades 9 through 12. In this plan, we've marked out 6 feet of physical distancing that will be those will be desks in a classroom. Students will be 6 feet apart from each other. It is a hybrid plan, meaning that we are going to do 2 days in person. Those are half days. And then 3 days remote to start per week. We will be building in later some expansion opportunities. We can talk a little bit about that a little bit later. We are going to be offering expanded in-person learning for special education students. That is what we're working on right now, to the extent that we can. We have some options that we're looking at more carefully. We are going to be doing both synchronous and asynchronous learning with daily schedules, and synchronous meaning live instruction. So this would be instruction that would take place from a teacher with a Google Meet, or from a resource person, or from a guidance counselor, or a variety of staff members. But for actual instructional purposes, it'll be with teachers. And synchronous will be work that we provided that is not live streamed. So we will be doing attendance. There are attendance requirements and grading. Again, like a regular school year, the state is requiring us to report attendance, and we will be doing grades throughout the course of the year. And we also have a parent choice that the parents can choose from a full remote option, which we're calling the BPS Remote Learning School. That is still in development. We will have more information on that next week. We're looking to do a survey early next week. We'll provide more information on the remote learning school at the same time, so parents can have that to make some choices around, so that we can understand better who would be coming back to school. And as part of that survey, we'll also be asking about transportation. And one of the questions that we're getting a lot, understandably, is the question of what days will my child be in person? Will my child be there Monday, Tuesday? Will they be there Thursday, Friday? We are working very hard on the schedules. Mr. Lee's going to talk a little bit about the scheduling in a couple minutes. And we hope to have that information to you as soon as we can. We recognize that it is really critical for you to have that as parents, so you can plan your lives. And we do feel the pressure of that and the sense of urgency around that. Part of that is also based on transportation. We are already mapping the routes out for this opening plan. We'll be transporting students to start. Our planning process will be to start by meeting minimum state standard expectations, which is 2 miles or more away from the school. Once we know that we can do that for the students that we are required under state law to transport with that criteria, then we will see and work hard to expand transportation services beyond that minimum requirement. So that work is in process. We're hoping to have a draft of the transportation plan and routing by Friday to review internally and to work on it through the following week. And also in the reopening, we will have continue to have our food service grab and go lunches, again, because it's a half day in person. Learners will get their lunch, a bag lunch at the end of the day, and we will be doing some meal service for all our remote learners. So if your child is in remote for one of the 3 days, if they are remote, we will be offering the grab and go meal service still. We are still working on potential childcare options. The option that because we're in option B, which was the approved plan by the school committee, the childcare that it would be in school both before and after school care. We're not able to offer a full day for the full remote days. That was in a different scenario when we would have had schools available for that service. So we'll continue to work on that. We're working with BASE, who many of you are familiar with. They do a great job, and we'll have more information on that again as the days proceed. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Lee to talk a little about middle school remote schedule, and I know we also hit a little bit on the elementary portion.
Thank you, Dr. Hackett. So if any of you had tuned in on Monday night and got the broad overview of the entire presentation, we did hit upon the middle school remote schedule at that point, and even receiving some feedback from that night, we've even begun to make a few adjustments to what we presented. But as originally presented, what you will see on the next slide is that English, math, a support block, and PE would be considered in-person classes, so that when your child came to school physically, that these were the courses that they would take. It is a 7-period schedule, and what that grouping of English, math, support, and PE as in-person classes gives us is the ability for all teachers, regardless whether it's an in-person day or a remote day, to have the option of some synchronous instruction for every period in the schedule. We prioritize that synchronicity at the top in terms of wanting that first and foremost. So this is a schedule that allows us to be able to provide at least the opportunity for synchronous work in every period during the day. Cohorts would come on either Monday or Tuesday, or Thursday and Friday. As Dr. Hackett explained, we are still going through the process of identifying which cohorts would be attending on Monday and Tuesday and on Thursday and Friday. I would tell you that one of the things that we're currently discussing is cohorting by alphabet, so that could give you some sense of where we're going. We're also prioritizing making sure that students from the same home are being cohorted into the same days to the extent that we are able to do that. So, using last names, but also using physical addresses, we will try to do as good of a job with that as we possibly can. What you'll see on the schedule is Wednesday is asynchronous academic classes, but that does not mean that there won't be synchronous activities on Wednesday, which I can explain a little bit further on the next slide. Dr. Hackett?
Is this you? Do you see the slides up?
Next slide.
You want this one or elementary? Mr. Lee may have lost audio with us. Hold on just a second, please. Oh. Okay, we have somehow lost Mr. Lee. I'm sure he'll turn up some point. He may need to log back in. So I'm going to just briefly go over this. Hopefully he can get on more quickly. He's been involved more than I have in terms of the actual scheduling. So as he stated earlier, we have the 2 in-person days. This will be a student schedule that we're looking at for a middle school student. We'll talk about elementary in a bit. We'd have Monday and Tuesday would be in person if that is the cohort that this child in particular is in. Wednesday is remote, but it does say asynchronous. However, we continue to work on this schedule. We are looking for ways to find additional synchronous opportunities through specialists. We are also looking at Wednesday as a possibility of providing our in-person special education services to students. In a consolidated location, and I believe Mr. Lee is back with us. Or not. On Thursday and Friday, this student would be in remote. They would have, you can see in this particular sample schedule, there will be an actual block of time. They will have the schedule. And what we've been able to do with the middle school schedule actually is be able to provide all of our remote learning, both on the afternoons of the in-person days, as well as the afternoon of the remote day, the entire remote days, synchronously with teachers. So, and that's partially because we're able to flip the schedule on the remote days. So for example, Monday in person with ELA, you can see 8 to 8:50. When you go over to Thursday, you can see that moves to the afternoon from 1:30 to 2. This is a significant change from where we were not too long ago. We also are having conversations around the PE block. That's where we started. We are talking about what that block might contain. It may be more than PE, but we also know that middle school students in particular do need to move. We're not too excited about the possibility of having them come in and do 4 straight academic classes. So we know they need a break, but we're going to work in some other opportunities within that block. That's in conversation right now. That has not been determined yet, but that's the next piece of this that we're working on. We also are looking to change out the resource and academic support block in the in-person time. And Mr. Lee, I don't know if you are able to join us.
I am. I'm sorry I got dropped.
Where have you been?
Well, this is exhausting.
Okay, all right.
I don't know how much of what I had said previously was actually understood. If I'm picking up where I think you are, the feedback that we did receive is making us reassess the PE block and the resource academic block. One of the things we've already kind of come to conclusion on is moving science into the in-person section of the day, and moving some other things out. PE, to be honest, we kind of feel strongly that we really do need to get kids up and moving during the course of time that they're in person. But we also understand that it's also an opportunity to have some other work done during that period. And so we are actively involved in that conversation to flesh out exactly what that period should look like. I'm not sure, Dr. Haggett, where you were, and I'm happy to pick up wherever I can.
About right there, Mr. Lee. And I was just started to touch on the resource academic support block. And
Right. So, and one of the things that we have discussed is other places where we can deliver those resource and academic support services as needed. Certainly, part of that is the conversation around that PE block. There's also some other opportunity while kids are still in school, a little bit after the day at 11:50 is ending, that we're exploring. We do want to be able to provide a lot of that academic support and resource support in person. It's very critical to us. In a broader sense, as I hope everybody heard, one of the reasons that we found the schedule to be so favorable at the middle school level is that it would allow teachers synchronous opportunity during every period in their schedule on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, which is something we truly valued for the connections that kids can make with teachers and their ability to get almost instantaneous feedback from teachers as needed. So there was some feedback from Monday that we are taking into consideration and making some modifications. But in general terms, we still favor the schedule as it provides the most synchronous instruction possible.
Mr. Lee, if you could talk a little bit about the Wednesday.
Certainly. So on Wednesday, academic lessons being delivered to students would come in the form of asynchronous work. However, that does not mean that they entirely would be asynchronous. This is an opportunity, again, for some of that support to be delivered, in this particular case, in a remote fashion. It's an opportunity for guidance to reach out to students and families as they work on the host of issues that they handle on a daily basis. Some community building, some social emotional learning are also part of this. So between that and the potential for teachers to have office hours and have other availability to handle some other family issues in terms of working with families directly, the Wednesday provides all of that and also allows for some great collaborative work among teachers, some really decent lesson planning so that we're maximizing the efficiency of our remote and in-person lessons. So Wednesday becomes very important, and although the academics might be delivered asynchronously, that does not mean the entire day is asynchronous.
Thank you. For another time here. And I'm going to need just a second to pull up the elementary. Mr. Lee, I don't know if you want to just sing a tune or something, just give me a second.
If you've ever heard me sing, I will spare all these fine people that injustice.
That'd be a good choice.
Certainly, fifth grade at Liberty and Highlands, we're still looking at it both from a middle school perspective and from an elementary perspective. As it was also mentioned on Monday night, at the elementary level, we are looking to have entire classrooms of students come into the school, but once in the building, be separated into 2 separate rooms to maintain the 6 feet of social distancing that we want to keep. What this allows, again, is the maximization of synchronous instruction over the course of the 2 days. We mentioned on Monday some research that we find valuable in terms of how much synchronous instruction is appropriate given age and developmental status of individual students. At the elementary level, they suggested no more than 2 hours. At the middle school level, they suggested 3.5 hours. So some of our elementary remote day schedule takes that into consideration, as we do not want our students just plugged in front of a screen all day. We want them to be doing a variety of different things. And so what you can see on the screen now that Dr. Hackett is put up is an elementary remote day sample. So this could be for any one individual student, but you can see the day would begin at 8:45. As mentioned, we would be taking attendance, and that 8:45 to 9:45 block is all synchronous with the classroom teacher doing some not only morning meeting type of activities, but also a lesson in real time. And at 9:45, they break out into some asynchronous work. At 10:30, we would go back again to synchronous and deliver specials, whether it be PE, art, music, something of that sort. And then at 11, back to asynchronous academic time, lunch, more asynchronous time before 1:45, where those students would come back to their classroom teacher in a synchronous environment through the end of the day at 2:50. So, the synchronous instruction in this particular model is about 2 hours and 35 minutes, which again is slightly more than is being recommended by the national board. But what it also provides, I don't know, Dr. Hackett, if the next slide up is the teacher's slide. Thank you. Is the ability, if you can take a look at, this is a teacher's schedule on that same remote day. And as you can obviously see at 8:45, they're doing that direct work with kids. But at 9:45, when those kids are working asynchronously, this teacher is now available to help with individual students to deal directly with some learning issues that they might be having. There's some collaborative time in there. As I mentioned, we want to make sure that we are providing the best lessons possible to our students. But then again, at 12:30, you can see as her students are working asynchronously, this teacher is available for office hours for students, or maybe working with families as needed in real time and in synchronous moments. At 1:45, just like the elementary student schedule, they're back together doing a synchronous afternoon meeting and lesson in all their days, and at 2:50. Thank you. So again, what we have valued in both the elementary schedule and in the middle school schedule is synchronous opportunities. That's something we heard loud and clear from the spring, and something we've done a lot of work to try to improve upon. There are obviously some trade-offs that are necessary to maximize the synchronous time. So as your questions come up about why we did separate the kids into 2 separate classrooms, or only had certain classes meet in person, it was all part of the larger plan to have as much synchronous time with students as possible. Thank you, Dr. Hackett.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. So the only other thing I want to add to that, and we'll just open it up for questions, is we also are, continues to be a work in progress. So we are meeting regularly for long periods of time to try to work through the logistics of our schedules. We absolutely recognize that having more synchronous opportunities are better for students, and that's where we want to be. We continue to work on the remote option, the remote school option, which we intend to provide with our own staff. There will be a survey going out next week, if I haven't mentioned that already, which we'll be asking you also in that survey about transportation. So we are working as hard as we can, as fast as we can, to deliver on the cohorts so that you can know whether or not your child is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And we also want you to know that we are going to continue to work on building this plan out. So in the earlier versions of some of the other options, we had some phased in periods. And one of the questions that people have been asking is what are the metrics that we need to look at in terms of phasing in, and where do you start with a phase in? So, obviously the options are many, but for example, do we go and bring the 2 days that are in person from half days to full days? Or do we add another half day? Those are the kinds of decisions that we'll be making. We're going to be setting criteria for how we make those decisions, working with the teachers, obviously. And but that information in terms of kind of points where we can look at those metrics and points where we might be able to expand will be coming out soon. We also all recognize that all this can change, and I think that's an important point. This virus is not waiting around. This virus is still with us, and we need to make sure that we are constantly paying attention to what's going on, both with the virus within the town of Braintree. We're very closely with the Braintree Health Department, and also just how we're managing the virus within our own schools, which is part of the reason why we wanted to start in a hybrid model with half day. This is not going to be school as we know it, and students are going to feel that difference. So as we all are, and we really want to make sure we're doing this well and doing this right and keeping everybody safe. So it was important for us to be able to start a little bit more slowly with a half day and 2 days a week, but we'll continue to try to expand on that. So with that, we have 266 people in attendance, and currently we have 16 hands up. I would ask again that you please stick to one question and don't be sneaking in separate parts of the questions and follow-ups. If you can, please, appreciate that. We want to make sure we get through as many people as possible. So with that, I'm gonna need some help with the pronunciation of your name, but Mergina.
Hi.
Hi.
I wanted to know regarding the computers or the Chromebooks. Are those going to be available? I have 3 kids, so, and they're all in kindergarten, middle school, and high school. Am I going to be able to, I have a computer, but that's not enough for, is there going to be offered those to the kids?
Thank you. Mr. Lee?
The answer to that is yes. We intend to be able to deliver devices to those families who need them, regardless of how many students you have in your home. As you may know, at the middle school level this year, we had initiated a Bring Your Own Device program. So we are hopeful that a lot of parents take advantage of that opportunity. But the district has purchased devices and hotspots for those families who will need devices at home to do this work.
Okay, thank you. Lisa Adams?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so I have an 8th grader at South Middle School, and I just remember when they were talking a couple weeks ago about the schedule, it was more of a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, just because of all the holidays on Mondays. So if my child gets Monday, Tuesday, there's a lot of holidays on Mondays. Are they just going to miss out on that remote day? How is that going to work?
Thank you for your question. So we looked at that a few different ways, and as we are starting after Labor Day, that's one Monday that we're not going to miss. We do, of course, have Columbus Day weekend in October, but then we also have November is both an election day, and we have Veterans Day, which I believe Veterans Day this year is on a Wednesday, I think. So it just became really kind of a little bit of a moving target. If it is a holiday, then it is a holiday, and we would then we would be in remote for everybody. We do have an election obviously coming up soon. Both the school department on Saturday, September 26th for the new South Middle School. That doesn't have an impact, but we do have a presidential election coming up in November that we will likely be talking a little bit more about how we're going to handle that, because we do not want people in our buildings with kids at the same time. So we went back and forth on that. We spent a lot of time thinking about that. The idea of having the Wednesday off gives us an opportunity to really deep clean buildings in between the cohorts that are coming in, and just felt it was also a little bit more predictable. So it was not an easy decision, but that's where we are. So thank you very much for the question. Brenda Keeley.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, how are you? I might have got your first name wrong, I'm sorry.
It was a little, yeah, it's Brita, that's okay.
Okay.
My question was partially answered already. It was in regards to that academic support resource block, and kind of just getting a little bit more information as to how you plan to maximize that time for students who may not need to access certain types of services or supports, and just to kind of what do you plan to do to support some of the other students who don't need those supports?
Well, as I mentioned, one of the decisions that we're fairly concrete on at this point is bringing science into that block, and using probably a combination of the PE block and the 1150 time and beyond to provide some resources to students. As I mentioned on Monday, and I'll mention it again, it is not just special education students who receive support in the schools. It is a host of students who, for a variety of reasons, access some type of support through our programming. With all that said, again, the feedback was relatively clear, and what we're really doing at this point, after moving science into the in-person schedule, is taking a look at that PE block to see what our options are related to what we can do in that time frame. Again, we truly value moving these kids around. 4 hours sitting in a classroom in September wearing a mask for a middle school kid who wants nothing more than to move is extremely difficult. So that's where our thinking currently is. It is about how do we maximize the opportunities in that time block? And we are looking and still continue to look at creative solutions to how we can best serve all students in that period.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Jason Beck.
Thank you for your time today, guys. I have one question about the whole hybrid model. So when my children are home or virtual, are they going to be having the same teacher, the same instructor that is in the classroom, or is there going to be a dedicated instructor that's there for the synchronous sessions to support them?
So they're going to have the same teacher. Again, what the middle school schedule that we propose does is it makes each teacher available each block, so that if they're in person, and they're working directly with that teacher. If they're home, those classes are being taught by different teachers. And so the classes they have while they're at home are not the same classes that they have while they're in person. And so a completely different instructor is assigned to that class and is available to provide synchronous help to the students during that block.
So my son is in the 5th grade. So if, as I understood it based on the schedule, they have that morning block, the community type learning. Is it still the same? And how is this teacher, because I recognize that he or she is going to have to deal with the number of students in front of them. What are they going to do to make sure that those students are still engaged during those sessions? Because I recognize it'd be challenging and easy to forget about the ones you can't see during those opportunities.
So I'm going to make the assumption that your student is either at Liberty or Highlands. And so by bringing all the students in from a class in at the same time and splitting them while they're in person, what that provides is that same classroom teacher is now available during the entire remote learning day, so that they can, again, maximize the amount of synchronous contact they have with students or families. And so the example schedule that was put up earlier, again, the synchronous work is being done by that same classroom teacher they saw in person. It is not all synchronous in the course of the day. As I mentioned, the research suggests we don't want that much screen time for kids, but that teacher is available for office hours to reach out to individual students and to do the type of work that they would typically do in person, only just from a remote perspective.
Thank you. Jean Concannon.
Hi, Frank. How you
Hey,
doing?
Jean. I'm well. How are you?
Good. It's really not, question's not for you. It's really for Mr. Lee.
I figured.
For some of us that are new to middle school, when you showed that middle school schedule, I don't really know what DLCS is at the end of the day. And a lot of us are new to 5th grade at East and 6th grade at East. Can you help us understand that, please?
DLCS is digital literacy. So it's your old media specialist working on a number of different platforms that typically are electronic. But it is the old library period revamped for the 21st century, if that's a better way to help you understand it. But that's what it is. Digital literacy is the focus of that particular, and that's a special, right? So similar to PE, similar to art, similar to music, that's a special that we offer at the school.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. You're all doing a great job. We've got about 20 minutes with 29 hands up. Let's see how many we can get through here. And again, I thank you for trying to stick to one question. Deb Cole.
Hi.
Hi.
I just had a question about the start times for the high school and middle school, especially where you have, like I have a 7th grader and a 10th grader. I didn't know if they're both going to stay at 8 o'clock because it will probably be a nightmare trying to get to South High School. So I don't know if there's any consideration for that.
Yes, thank you for your question. Start times right now will depend on our transportation routing, which we are working on as we speak. We hope to have, again, a draft of that by the end of next week. So there may need to be some adjustments to start times. Part of the variable in the equation is how many parents are actually going to take buses and how many are actually going to drive students. So we don't have an answer to that yet, but we're continuing to work on it. Meredith Fletcher.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, I have a question. I have an a kid at Highlands and a kid at South. Is there a way to get both of them on the same cohort day?
Our intention is to have families all on the same cohort day. It's work that we will continue to do. We, as I think I mentioned, are looking initially at Alphabet as the way to sort kids into cohorts, but we are also using data we have in our student information system to identify addresses that students are coming from in the hopes that we can get as many families on the same days as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Carol Ann Ricardo.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Can hear you. How are you?
Hello, good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Hey, a quick question about special ed students. I heard today that there's going to be a separate Zoom meeting that's going to go over IEP.
There'll be a separate Zoom meeting on special services, including special education. We'll let you know as soon as we can get that together. We want to do it early to mid next week.
Fabulous. That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, thanks. Bye.
He makes the big move.
Scott Valdez.
The most, he gets the most money in the whole.
According to the schedule, Ariana will be going.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Are you considering having AP classes this year?
Most of, like they're supposed to.
The high school will be offering AP classes this year.
Middle school?
Middle school does not typically offer AP courses. Are you talking about advanced level courses? Or are you talking about AP is the College Board courses that the high school students take?
I'm sorry, advanced courses like advanced math, English.
No, so for this year, given the pandemic, we had made the decision to de-level the middle school classes so that when students are returning back to school, we can keep them cohorted and limit interactions between student groups to maximize safety.
Thank you. Diane Fitzgerald. I'm sorry, Diana.
Oh, there you go. Hi, how you doing?
Hi, sorry about that.
Just
My
lost you,
eyes are getting tired.
Thank you. Hi, how you doing? I have a quick question about the in-person. When they do the in-person, so if they get Monday and Tuesday in person, they do ELA and math, and then they go again on Tuesday the same classes, or is it going to be social studies and science?
We're talking about the middle school?
Middle school schedule,
Yeah.
yes.
Mr. Lee?
So is it all?
So when they go back to back, they are actually the same classes. And that, again, is to allow those teachers to be working with those kids directly so that other teachers who do full remote can do work in a synchronous fashion with the students as well. So the in-person classes remain the same.
Thank you. Sue Bacage.
Hello?
Hello. Oh, you're not Sue Bacage.
Hi, this is Rick Bocage.
Oh, hey, how are you?
Good. I got a question on Wednesdays, asynchronous versus the synchronous on Wednesday.
Yep.
Now, is my understanding that most of these classes will be asynchronous?
Mr. Lee?
If you're referring to Wednesday and Wednesday only, yes, because that would also provide the opportunity for other synchronous work that needs to be done when students can get accomplished. So as I mentioned, things like guidance meetings, school psychologists who do work with families, some school building, community building activities coming from the school's administration. But as I mentioned earlier, if you're talking about classes on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday, the opportunity is for synchronous instruction for every period of the day.
Hey, thank you. Sorry, everybody. One just second here. On the screen. Lauren Branco. Lauren, did you already talk once? Or was that the last meeting?
Yes, at the last meeting. This is a middle school question.
Okay.
Thanks, sorry.
That's all
One thing
right,
this one is specific to middle school. Till now, we're talking about different specials. I haven't heard anything yet about languages. Is there a plan to have languages this year?
Thank you.
Our languages are offered in 7th and 8th grade, and we do intend to offer them again this year. The sample schedules we gave were a 6th grade schedule, so it's just not in there, but we do intend to offer the courses.
Thank you. If I could ask you to, if you have already asked the question and you have your hand up, if you could put it down, please, because I'm losing track here a little bit. Michelle Casey.
Hi, thank you. I just had a question. If we decide to keep the kids to do full remote at home, how would that work?
So the intention is to have Braintree public school teachers teaching the remote sections of the courses. What we don't know yet is exactly how many students want to avail themselves to that option and how many teachers are available to teach remotely. But that is our intention. As the surveys, the teacher survey went out earlier this week. As Dr. Hackett mentioned, the family survey is coming out next week. With those numbers, we will be able to identify, do we have any gaps in staffing that we need to address? But the intent is to have Braintree teachers teaching those courses, run along the same parallel as the curriculum being taught in all the other courses in the building.
Thank you. So I am going to, we have got about 10, 12 minutes left. I'm going to reset your hands because, again, I think I can see that some people that still have their hands up who've already asked one question. So I'm going to reset them. And then if you still have a question, I would ask you to go ahead and raise it again. So. It was wicked fast. All right. Nicole Kerwin.
Yes, hello, thank you.
Sure.
And yes, I was one of those people who raised my hand wicked fast. My question is about the Braintree Public Schools remote learning option. I do understand it is still a work in progress. My question is primarily, if a significant number of families choose that option, is there any potential that you're going to have to cap those numbers?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part of your question. Could you just repeat that, please?
Of course. The question is, if a significant number of families choose that option, is there any potential that you're going to have to cap those numbers and limit the students doing full remote?
Okay. The quick answer is no, because every child that chooses that option is a child that's not going to be in another class, whether it's in person or that part of the hybrid remote. So as those kids come out of that pool, we don't need as many teachers in that pool, obviously, and we need more teachers for the full remote option. So that it is a work in progress, and I ask you to understand that. But in terms of capping it, there shouldn't be a need. As kids flow from one group to another, the teachers would flow with them.
Okay, thank you. Shauna Casey.
Oh shoot.
Oh, we can hear you.
You got me? All right.
Yep.
All right, good. I didn't swear, right? You got
No, that's why I said it so fast.
Good call. So mine was related, my question's related to transportation, which I know we're still hearing back on. But I was wondering if, there's gonna be a lot more kids walking and biking to school. So I didn't know if we would ask the town to provide some details around some of the local, more busy intersections and just make sure that the kids had bike racks and everything like that as well.
Great question, thank you. So the short answer is yes. The town does employ our crossing guards, and we've been in touch with, we've been back and forth on this communication about how many we're going to need. We're going to need more. We have the half-day situation too, so it's kind of changing up the hours of people. As soon as we know what the transportation routes look like and what we can do, not just what we have to do by law, but what we can do, then we will evaluate those locations and make some determinations as to whether or not we need some additional support there. So thank you. Mark Moore?
Yes, hi, Dr. Hackett.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thanks. My question is about cohorting. To me, it would make more sense to cohort based on neighborhood or where your child went to elementary school. That way siblings do stay together, obviously. And for bus routes, you wouldn't have to crisscross the town, picking up M's all over the place. And also, if there was a COVID outbreak, it would be more localized to a specific neighborhood as opposed to different neighborhoods throughout Braintree. So I didn't know if that was something that you were looking at.
It's a good question.
It is something that we've considered. You raised very valid points around it. As I said, our initial discussions at this point really do relate to the alphabet, but what you mentioned is still on the table as well.
Thank you. Megan McMasters.
Hi. So my question is about like possible exposures and the plans for like how you're going to contact families. If somebody in the class is exposed, will all of the other students and families be told?
Thank you.
So there is a protocol for identifying close contacts to any student or staff member who is diagnosed as positive with COVID, and families would be contacted and asked to quarantine or be tested. So the quick answer to your question is absolutely yes.
Wendy Chung, I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Can you hear me?
Can.
Hello?
Hi.
Oh, good. Thank you. You did pronounce it correctly. That is very nice.
Thank you.
Actually, I have a question for the PE classes. I can imagine the kids are running around with sweats and all that. Do they have the mask on? I can imagine without the mask is a risk. With the mask is a mess. What is the precaution for prevention and also overall to kind of for the distancing in activity times?
Thank you. Mr. Lee, you want to start that?
Certainly. So, you know, the biggest priority is maintaining not the 6 feet. And the hope and the desire is to be able to hold those PE classes out on some fields outdoors to really get those kids out of the classroom for a little bit, let them expel some energy while keeping them far enough apart so that they're safe. On days where the weather is an issue, we would reconfigure into classrooms, you know, with 6 feet social distancing and not have active activities, which is a really sad choice of words, but you know, teaching health lessons and teaching other things that kids need to know about their bodies and themselves, but not doing any type of physical activity in that small space. So the real physical activity would be done outside with social distancing and masks to make sure that kids are safe. But again, we think it's very important given how long they've been cooped up in the school.
Thank you. William Valenzuela.
Hi, I just have a quick question as far as remote learning. Are you simplifying the process? When we started it back in March, it was just really difficult for our 4th grader because he had 3 usernames and passwords, and it was hard to show your work online when you're solving a math problem.
Mr. Lee, I'll let you handle that.
We absolutely are trying to simplify the process. We've purchased some software that should assist families and students in terms of a single sign-on to access all their applications so that you're not bouncing around trying to remember all your passwords and things of that nature. We are looking at being able to submit work in hard copy form, given the ability to come into the schools at this point and drop things off, that becomes more possible. It was more difficult during the spring. So yes, we are looking to simplify things for families, particularly from a technology standpoint. I think some of the software that has been purchased will be very beneficial to students and families and making it much easier to access what we need them to access.
Thank you. You're doing a great job, everybody, keeping yourself to one question. We've done a pretty good job getting through a lot. We have about 4 minutes left with 12 hands up. So we'll take a few more. If you could just, again, keep it short so we can get through more people. Allison Gurley.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my question.
Absolutely.
This should be an easy one, I hope.
No, don't say that.
Are there supply lists or modified supply lists depending on which program you're doing? other than the Chromebook? I mean, the basic school supplies?
School supplies. We actually are not quite at that level of discussion yet.
Okay.
Sorry,
I'm getting ahead of myself.
No, that's okay. That's a great question. Usually the principals are great about having those lists out already. I can't imagine
And
that
in
it would
fairness
change.
to them, we asked them to hold those lists as we figured out exactly what we want students to have when they return to school.
Thank you. Whoops, sorry. Donna Larson? Donna, I don't remember if I called on you yet or not, but it might have been the last session.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, no, you did not. Thank you all. I'm a director of a preschool, so I know what you're all going through. So my question goes back to, you're not having the middle school leveled, correct?
Correct.
Will there be opportunities for the students that may need to be challenged at different points through this whole process?
Good question, Mr. Lee.
Well, absolutely. We believe in teaching up. We believe in differentiating instruction, and we believe in making sure that every child is challenged to that level that helps them improve and to learn. So that is work that we have been doing as a district in preparation for East opening and in anticipation of self-passing and moving to a 5-8 model as well. Currently, our grades 1 through 5 are not leveled, and we had intended not to level grade 6 at East anyway. However, this is a strange year, and moving forward into the year, we prioritize safety in the cohorting of students and maintaining that over the course of the year over what small benefit we might get out of leveling for all students. Braintree does not accelerate its math program. We are not rushing to get to algebra in 8th grade. So the entire program at the high school remains available for all students. So for us this year, middle school will be de-leveled. We will return to leveling when this pandemic has passed, but the benefit of safety overmatched everything else.
Thank you. Jonathan Beardsley.
Hi, my question is, my daughter's new to middle school and she's going to East, and each subject is taught by a different teacher. Will the students stay on one Zoom call and the teachers will come in, or how will the subject classes be managed remotely?
So the teacher teaching that class would be the one leading the Google Meet class, and all students would be on that in the remote setting. Again, there'd be opportunities at other points for students to engage teachers in a smaller group setting or one-to-one using Google Meet during those remote days. But yes, it would be the whole class.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. Colleen Wakeling. Colleen, you are unmuted on our end. I don't know if you, there you go. Okay, we do not have your sound even though you're unmuted. So I'll take another one, Melissa Hayes.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can.
Thanks. I have a 5th grader entering East Middle School this year, and so I'm curious as far as whether the kids, when they're on site, will be switching classrooms or even going to PE, and how the safe distancing will be maintained in the transit from one room to another.
Great question. Thank you.
So in general, they would either stay in the same room or perhaps move between 2 rooms. We're still having conversations about just the energy level of middle school students and whether or not we could pull that off safely. In terms of moving around the building at transitional moments, including PE, we've worked a staggered groups getting dismissed from an area and groups arriving in an area. So we would maintain that 6 feet in every place that we can imagine. Again, that has been our biggest priority.
Okay, everybody, you did a great job again. Thank you so much for coming. I just wanted to quickly show you that if you have not seen it, we do have a website dedicated to reopening. It is braintreeschools.org/reopening. And when you go there, you'll just see some background information, as well as some frequently asked questions. We are still working hard to build those out. They're coming in faster than we can manage, to be quite candid with you. We've added, just to make it a little bit easier on us, a new form. When you hit this particular form to submit a question, you're going to be able to use a Dropbox to select the category, whether it's transportation or special education. That will help us to better manage the questions as they come in. You can see this is the opening plan overview, the school assignments, where everyone's going to go. And then if you go down a little bit further, you can see planning and information, resources information. We are still building a lot of these out right now. But when you click on any one of these, you'll see where we are in our current process and thinking on each one of these categories. So again, appreciate your time. We will try to get another session out sometime next week. They might be more based on category, as we mentioned earlier, but have a good evening, everybody. Thank you.